Hi, I'm Denise. Thank you for watching my video. Today I'm going to talk about the sound G. I will talk about how to make the sound. I will talk about which letters make the sound. I will give you examples of words with this sound, G. And I will compare words with G and a related sound, K. And I will give you some sentences containing words with the sound. Okay? So let's get started. I would like to talk about how the sound G is made. The sound G is a stop sound. That means that we momentarily stop air from coming out of our mouth, and then when we release the air, the sound is made. So how do we stop the air? We stop it with the back of our tongue. If we pretend that this is my tongue, we can raise the back of the tongue so that it touches the roof of the mouth. And that is what stops the air. The air cannot come through here because the tongue is blocking that passage. As soon as we lower the tongue, the air can come out and the sound is made. Okay? If I turn my head this way, you can see that with my tongue, if I raise the back of my tongue, then the air would be blocked. Okay? Lowering it releases the air. As we release that air, a small puff of air is released. It's not real strong, but it's there. The air is released and we hear the sound. The sound G, this sound, is a voiced sound. That means that our vocal cords vibrate when we make this sound. Some people do confuse the G sound with the K sound. These two sounds are very similar because they are both made by raising the back of the tongue to touch the roof of the mouth, stopping the air and lowering, then releasing the air. They are made in the same way. However, the G, as I said, is a voiced sound, so it does use the vocal cords. K is a voiceless sound, so it does not use the vocal cords. So that is a big difference between these two sounds. Another difference between these sounds is that I said G releases a small puff of air, but K releases a strong puff of air. Okay? So these are different sounds. Today we will be focusing on G. When I talk about this sound, G, I will write the letter G like this, surrounded by two slash marks. This represents the sound. This is G. This does not represent the letter G. When I talk about a letter, I will not use these two slashes. I will write the letter G like this, okay? So the sound G is made with the letters G and X. So the letters G and X do make the G sound, but both of these letters can make other sounds as well. I will give you several examples of when these letters do make the G sound, okay? When the letter G is followed by the letters A, O, or U, it usually makes the G sound, okay? Here are some examples. Gas, go, gum. Each of these words starts with G, okay? The G sound, all right? Then, now I have a U up here, but this is a little bit more specific. The letter G plus U plus another vowel results in a G sound, and that letter U is usually silent. U is silent. This usually occurs at the beginning of a word. So I have the letter G plus the letter U plus another vowel. Here my vowel is E. Here I have G-U-I, the letter I. When I have G-U-E or G-U-I or G-U-A, another vowel. The U is usually silent, and the G does make the G sound, okay? So this word is guess and guide. Guess, guide. We hear a G, we don't hear the U, and we do hear the next vowel, okay? That usually occurs at the beginning of a word or syllable. When we have the letter G plus both the letters U and E, usually at the end of a word, then both U and E are silent. Here are some examples. League, fatigue. So here we do, I spelled fatigue wrong. Sorry. Here we do have G-U-E, but both the U and E are silent. Both the U and E are silent. This is league. It ends in a G sound. League, fatigue. Okay? An exception to this is the word argue. In this word we do hear the U sound, argue. But most of the time we just hear the G. Okay? The letter G, when followed by the letter L, does sound like G. Okay? So two examples are glass and globe. Of course, we do hear the L sound, the O also, but the G sounds like G. Glass, globe. When the letter G is followed by the letter R, G also sounds like G. Here I have two examples. Green, grow. Okay? In both of these words, we can hear the G at the beginning of the word. Green, grow. Okay? When we have two G's together, this usually results in one G sound. We don't have two G sounds, okay? So G plus G just equals one G. This is the word bigger, okay? Bigger. That building is bigger than the other building, okay? The letter G plus H at the beginning of a word usually makes the G sound. The H is silent and we hear only G. Here's an example in the word ghost. Ghost. So we hear the G and we don't hear a sound for the H, okay? However, when G plus H occurs at the end of a word, it usually does not sound like G. It can sound like the sound made by the letter F, or it can even be silent. Let's look at some examples. G plus H can make the F sound, as in the word laugh. Laugh. This GH does not make a G sound. G plus H at the end of a word can also be silent. There's no sound at all for these two letters, as in the word high. High. So in this word, it's as if there was just an H and an I, high. In this one, that made a F. And in this, at the beginning of a word, GH made G. G plus H plus the letter T normally just sounds like T. Here's GHT. The G and H are silent, just as they are up here, but when followed by the T, the letter T, we do hear a T sound. This is the word night. Okay? So, G plus H at the beginning of the word usually sounds like G. Okay? G plus H at the end of a word can sound like F. Or it can be silent, as in the word high. G plus H plus T results in a silent G plus H, and we hear only the T, so we get a T sound, as in night. If you would like more information about this, please see my other videos. For the F sound, you can see my video about F, and you can take word list videos to get more examples of words with GH, okay? When the letter G is followed by the letter N in the middle of a word, we usually do get two sounds. We get G plus N, okay? Here are two examples. We have the word signal and the word pregnant. So for the letter G, I hear G, sig, and for the letter N, I hear N, no, signal, okay? Pregnant. So again, G plus N in the middle of a word usually results in G plus N, okay? Just what you probably would expect. But if we have the letters G plus N at the beginning of a word, such as gnaw or gnat, the letter G is silent. Here I have GN at the beginning of the word. I don't hear sound for the G. I hear only the N, a sound for the letter N. This is gnaw. This is gnat. The G is silent, okay? Also, if G plus N occurs at the end of a word, the G is usually silent. Okay, so this is sign, this is a line. We do hear a sound for the letter N. I hear N, sign, and I hear a line. Okay, so G plus N at the beginning of a word or at the end of a word usually results in a silent letter G. We hear only the sound for the N, so we hear N. Okay? Here are some more examples of when the letter G does not make the G sound. When the letter G is followed by the letters E, I, or Y, it usually sounds like J. Okay? Here are some examples. Gene, giant, gym. Okay? In these three words, the letter G sounds like J. This sound is sometimes called a soft G, and this one, G, is sometimes called a hard G. But please note that they are different, and I am focusing on the hard G, or the G, in this video. Okay? There are many exceptions to this, though. Here are three exceptions. The word get, the word girl, and the word give. In each of these, the letter G is followed by, in these cases, an E or an I, but we get the G sound. Most of the time, though, with these three letters, we get the J sound. Okay? Another example is when N comes before the letter G, we usually get a nasal sound, and this is N. Okay? N. This is a nasal sound. The air is coming through my nose. It's not good. This sound occurs at the end of words, such as the word long, sing, and going. Okay, let's look at this again. N comes before G at the end of many words. In this one, and G, this is long. The last sound is a nasal sound. It's not G, okay? Long, sing, again a nasal sound, and going. When we have words ending with ing, that ng normally sounds like It's not a G, okay? Many people do confuse this. They see the letter G, and they think that, especially like in the ing, they think that that makes a G sound, but it doesn't, okay? This is a different sound, the nasal sound, or sound, okay? This G, the first G in this word, does make the G sound. Okay? This is G, go, ing, If you are interested in learning more about the J sound or the sound, please take a look at my other videos, okay? The letter X can also make the G sound, and I have some examples up here on the board. The letter X usually makes two sounds. When it makes the G sound, it also makes the Z sound, okay? So it makes the two sounds together. Here are some examples. Exact, exist, example. Okay, I'll say those again, but can you hear both the G and the Z? Egg, that's the G. Zact, that's the Z. Exact, exact. Okay? Exist, exist. Example, example. Okay? So, when the letter X makes the G sound, it also makes the Z sound. Alright? In many words, though, the letter X does not make G, Z. Instead, it makes the two sounds K and S. I won't be talking about those words here in this video. I just wanted you to be aware, okay? Also, occasionally, the letter X makes the Z sound alone. Alright? Here's an example of a word which can be pronounced with either G, Z, or K, S. There are a few words which can use either pronunciation. This is a common one, okay? This can be pronounced as exit, zit, exit, or with K as exit, exit, okay? In this video, though, I'm talking about G, Z, exact, exist, example, okay? Here's a summary of what we have seen so far. The letter G, when followed by A, O, or U, usually sounds like G. Here are some examples. Gas, go, gum, guess, guide, league, fatigue. Okay? Please remember that I said when GU at the beginning of a word is followed by another vowel, the U is usually silent. So this is guess, we don't hear the U. But the G does make a G sound. This is guide, we don't hear the U. When G is followed by UE at the end of a word, usually both the U and the E are silent. This is league, but we hear the G, okay? And fatigue. And I did give you an exception to this rule with the word argue. With the word argue, we do hear the U sound. Okay? We also saw that the letter G, when followed by L or R, does make the G sound. We still do hear the L and the R, but G does sound like G. So we have glass, globe, green, grow. And the letter G, when followed by another G, just makes one G sound, as in the word bigger. Okay? Let's take a look at it this side. The letter G, when followed by H, can make the G sound at at the beginning of some words. Here's an example, the word ghost. We don't hear the H, but we do hear the G, and it makes a G sound. Ghost, okay? But the letter G plus H at the end of a word usually does not make the G sound. G plus H at the end of a word can make F, as in the word laugh, or G plus H can be silent, as in the word high, or G plus H when followed by the letter T just makes a T sound. So here too, the GH is silent, the T is not silent. So G plus H, it can sound like G, usually at the beginning of some words, as in ghost. It can sound like F at the end of words, such as laugh. It can be silent at the end of words, such as high. When followed by the letter T, the GH is silent, we hear only the T, as in night. Okay? When we have G plus the letter N, we can, in the middle of a word, such as in these two words, we do hear both the G and the N. GN, usually in the middle of a word. Not always, but usually. This is signal, pregnant. So we hear both sounds. But at the beginning of a word, if we have G plus N, the G is silent. So we hear only the N sound. This is gnaw. This is gnat. At the end of a word, if we have GN, the G is usually silent, as in the word sign and in the word align. So G plus N in the middle of the word often results in hearing both the G and the N sounds. G plus N at the beginning of a word only sounds like N, the G is silent, and G plus N at the end of a word sounds like N, the G is silent. Okay? Back to this side. I showed you that in many words where we have G followed by E, I, or Y, the G sounds like J. Okay, it does not sound like G. It's a soft G, it sounds like J, as in Jean, giant, and Jim. I did forget to tell you, so I'll add it here. We can also get the sound J, okay? Slightly different from this one, as in the word beige, okay? I showed you some exceptions to this. I showed you 3 exceptions. I showed you get, girl, and give. In these 3 words, the G does sound like G, okay? It does not sound like J or J, all right? I also showed you when we have the letter N in front of the letter G at the end of a word, it usually sounds like which is a nasal sound. It's not the G sound, okay? This is long, sing, and going. In this case, it's the ing ending. The ng sounds like not the G sound, okay? And back to this side, I showed you with the letter X, we can have the G sound. If we do have the G sound, we also have the Z sound, okay? X sounds like G, Z, as in the words exact, exist, and example, okay? So bit of an overview, of a summary of the words that I've given you so far. Okay? Let's move on.